Tonight, I got Brian Butler from Altitude Exotics out in Colorado. He's a Crested Gecko breeder, if you don't know who I'm talking about. If you don't, you should. Even if you're not into Crested Geckos, Brian's made pretty huge splash in the gecko industry, certainly looked up to as a leader, and I'm really excited to have him on the show tonight. We're going to talk business. We're going to talk building a brand from the ground up. I'm going to learn a little bit more about Crested Geckos, and I might even ask him about some, international business deals. Who knows? Stick around. We got a fun time tonight. Brian Butler from Altitude Exotics. What's going on, everybody? I am hot off the weekend travels out to Denver, Colorado for the All-American Reptile and Plant Expo. And I will admit, as charged up as I may or may not sound right now, or I'm trying to sound, I am absolutely exhausted. The weekend was fun. I had a great time. Big thanks to Robin Marklin at REDLINE Shipping, both for what he and the company do for the industry. But it was a great weekend. He did some sponsor work with him and REDLINE. If you didn't get to see it, I think there's 9 episodes of live properroyals podcast interviews, just live from the show. You can, excuse me, you can go check those out. And Robbins is one of them, and his is particularly insightful. But there's some really great people on there, and it was a fun weekend getting to hang out with everybody. It's a nice show that has a big time feel to it. So congratulations to Nick and Troy at Best Dressed Balls and Sloan Reptiles. And as is often the case, the ladies behind the guys that are really making it happen, the fuel in the engine, so to speak. That's Lauren and Lisa. What a wonderful group of people. All of them are. Hosting me was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. So if AARPE, All-American Reptile Plant Expo, is coming to your town, I highly suggest checking it out. They're not paid. There's no agreement here. This is just honest feedback. But I know that they're in Charlotte in a couple weeks. And then this fall sometime, November perhaps, they'll be in Kansas City. And then I think that they do each of those shows twice a year. So there's at least 6 shows a year that you could go check out. Maybe more new markets. I'm not sure. I will have Nick on the show in a week from tonight. Nick Sloan from Sloan Reptiles. And then in 2 weeks, I got Brian Gundy on the show. How about that? Some heavy hitters. I'm pretty stoked for this run of shows. Excuse me for just a second. Anyhow, it's good to be home. As fun as being away is, getting back to the animals, trying to get back into a routine. My son's in school. I do have my other business to tend to, my hospitality consulting company. All of that's going well. All of it's busy, just the way that I like it, but I could use a little bit of a nap every now and again. So we'll see how that goes this week. Maybe I'll get a nap, but not tonight. Next show for me in person vending is October 6th at the Cold Blooded Expos Minneapolis show. That's right here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you haven't been to that show and you're able to, you should go. I really think it's the best show in this region, this side of Tinley. I really enjoy that show, both from a vendor experience, but there's really good vendors there for the customers. I know Chris at Epic Styles will be vending. JSA Exotics will be vending. I think Kyle's Reptiles comes into town. Myself, I'll be there. MBK will be there. So it's a good show. I'm sure I'm leaving people out. My apologies if I am. But it's a very good show, and I enjoy it. I think Ghost Constrictors will be there as well. So if you get a chance to check out the October 6th Cold Blooded Expos Minneapolis show, please do. In the meantime, if you need your fix, I got a little suggestion. You can go to properroyals.com and check that out. If you haven't had a chance to, please do. I got new stuff that's hitting. It's not going to be every day this month for the next couple weeks, but every few days I'll be dropping 5 or 6 new animals on there. I've got some clowns, axanthic stuff. excuse me, I got some allergies or something. Clown axanthic stuff. I've got double het clown axanthic gravel combos that I've got to get tested for them, but there's a few that I know that are gravel. And then I've got some triple het clown axanthic hypo males and females that'll be going on there. So keep your eye on properroyals.com. Patreon gets first dibs, then properroyals.com, then Morph Market. And, at the live show, who knows what I bring. So come on out to the live show if you get a chance on that. Last but not least, hey, look at that. There's 22 of you out of the gate. If you're here and you've never been to the show before and you're here because you saw Brian's ad, I very much appreciate it. Welcome. Generally, the show's about ball pythons. I know everybody in the industry is about ball pythons. But I like to think of a little bit different, try and stay focused on business, on strategy, on the community. Definitely steer away from the drama. I'd like to be something that the industry looks up to. And of course, it's a little bit of fun to have a little bit of drama. I get it. But by and large, that's what we stay focused on. So if you enjoy it, love to have you back. And I do look around the reptile industry as a whole versus just the ball python industry. So thanks for being here. I had the pleasure of meeting Brian this weekend at the All-American Reptile Plant Expo out there in Castle Rock, Colorado, just south of Denver, and like Denver suburbs south, not like Colorado Springs south. So right there in Denver, really. And I'd actually met Brian briefly the last time that I was out there in April, but we didn't really connect. And so I do these live interviews, and it's kind of it's a little bit of a silly thing because I'm booking these interviews on the fly, and then we're doing them right off the cuff. So there's not really any show prep. There's not really any of that. And naturally, I gravitate towards the ball python breeders, but it's a plant expo, so I went to go look for some plant breeders, found that. And Brian and I just by happenstance ended up, I should have him on the show when I'm telling the story. I'll bring him on in a second. But by happenstance, we hung out Friday night and had some fun. And I said, man, I got to talk to this guy. And then I started doing my show prep, and I realized I'd heard of Brian, but I didn't know his first name. I knew Altitude Exotics, and I heard of some of the influence of the geckos. And I connected it in my brain all the way back to Brian. It's a weird world of first names, brands, then Instagram, then who knows who. Anyway, so that's how Brian ended up here tonight. And then he took this slot on short notice because, again, I'll have him on when I tell the story. But we just couldn't connect through a little series of mishaps at the show to do the live one. And I said, well, if you were going to do the short one, how about you just come do the full show? So please welcome for the very, very first time ever to the Proper Royals channel, Brian Butler from Altitude Exotics. Brian, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I am good. I have this weird thing that even though I'm not really looking at you, I got to have my face sort of like fake facing you. So there we go. Now I'm good. It messes with my head if not. So have you been since the show? How was the show? How's the wrap up, getting back home and into the swing of things? How's everything?
Yeah, it's been good. It's always hectic coming out of a show weekend. There's so much to do. And I tend to live life in a way that makes it as difficult as I can on myself. So I actually had tickets to a concert Sunday night after the show. So I was throwing all my stuff in the van. I drove home, just put the animals inside, left everything packed up, and took an Uber to the show. I'm paying the price. I'm sore as hell. I'm getting too old to go to these kinds of shows, and I'm getting sick too. So it's been a fun week.
Now you have my attention. All right. So what was the venue in Denver, and then what was the band?
So it was it was at the Mission Ballroom, and it was a couple bands. Avatar was one, Ice Nine Kills was one.
Oh, and nice. Okay.
Moment was another.
So you're going for some heavy metal, like real pits, man, huh?
Yeah, that's like I said. I'm paying the price. I'm pretty sore and beat up today. I'm getting a little too old for trying to clear a mosh pit and do some crowd surfing, but I just can't seem to give it up yet. Maybe when I'm 40, I'll stop. I don't know. Okay. All right.
Okay. Now I have to think. So I was in Denver 2 summers ago, and I went to it's a different ballroom. They had the original ones in San Francisco, and they like franchise them out. What's it called? What's the venue?
Is it the Fillmore?
Yeah. So yeah, it was at the Fillmore, and Frank Turner was the headliner, and there was about 6 punk bands ahead of time. And those, anybody, if you haven't seen Frank Turner, I realize he's not the biggest act in the world, but go Google him, you'll be happy. He's an incredible show. He was on a 50 states in 50 days tour. And he actually said that they had 2 bands touring with him because the guys needed a break, but this guy just didn't stop. He had basically rotating backing band members with him. But
oh, it's crazy.
And I'm not much of a metal guy, but I have seen Ice Nine Kills before. Did they do all the costume changes and the themes and all that? They still do all that?
On a pretty theatrical show, yeah.
Yeah, okay. They were good. And I think other than like their costume change times, they didn't really. I was at a metal festival and I was amazed at how many people were using backing tracks. But those guys were primo. They were good. And then really, really nerdy, and I swear this is the truth. Some guys that I've toured with out of Montreal opened on a tour for Avatar when they were touring Scandinavia. So Sweden, Norway. Yeah, my buddy's an Irish punk band called the Mahones. For some reason, acoustic folk Irish punk opening for Avatar in Scandinavia. It all worked. That's what they were doing. So I know a little bit about them. I don't know the guys, but I know a little bit of them. So
that's cool. Avatar is another one of those bands. They're really, really theatrical. If you ever get the chance to see them, even if you don't like the music, just the spectacle they put on is worth the show.
Yeah, live concerts. That's a great way to put it. Live shows that are a spectacle. I'll watch almost anything. Like if they're and it doesn't even have to be I could say that about jazz or even country. If it's a legend and they're icons at what they do for a reason for the show that they put on, I'll probably go see them, and I usually will try to. So those smaller club gigs are great too. Instead of an arena, you can be like right up. You can make your way up there and really get the interaction.
It's much better that way. It's much better that way.
I agree with you.
You have friends that were opening for Avatar. That's one of my little known claims to fame from my younger days. I opened for In This Moment at one point, and I got to see them headlight the other night.
Okay, look at that. What do you play? This is totally unscripted, audience. What do you play, Brian?
So I used to play in a couple metal bands, lots of drums and vocals.
Okay.
We opened at a bar that doesn't exist anymore here in Eastern Denver called X Saloon. It was In This Moment's first ever tour that they did. They were like a nobody band that nobody had ever heard of, and they plucked us out of the local scene to open for them at some bar. I had no idea who they were. They were just this metal band with this chick singer, and then I got sick, and I was like, I've never heard these guys. I'm going to go home, and I left before their set even started, and now they're one of the biggest acts in the metal scene.
Nice. So I have 2 questions. This is going to show my ignorance. That's not the woman that just got picked to be Linkin Park's new singer, is it?
No, different lady.
Okay, different lady. Okay. All right, so 0 for 1 there. The other I got, and it's not a claim to fame, it's a claim to a brush with fame for a moment. But yeah, we got to open for Flogging Molly a couple times on the the Irish punk scene. So yeah, we had a little bit of fun. Did you do all like the double bass kicks and all of that?
The band that I was doing drums in, we had 2 drummers. So we had one guy on like a traditional kit, and then we had another custom built, like this giant elaborate kit that I would play. We were real like groovy, tribal, heavy percussion section kind of.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Nice, man. I'm genuinely intrigued. I could talk all night about that. I don't know if the audience would like it or not, but that is a case in point of why I do this show. We get to hang out and see where the conversation goes. So, all right. So you went to that after vending VIP Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. You decide you'll go to a metal show that night and get beat up for kicks.
Yeah, that was my weekend. We also did the pickleball Friday night. I had dinner with the guys from Pangea Reptiles Saturday night.
Yeah,
it was a weekend. We did a lot.
Yeah, we did pack it in. So I went the opposite way. Sunday morning, I got up at like 5:45 and went and got breakfast and coffee, and then hit the trails on the mountain bikes with Robin and a couple of the guys out there in Colorado, which was fantastic for a guy from Flatland, Florida, and Minneapolis. it was pretty fun. So I had a good time. But
Robin invited me out, but I knew, I was like, I can't do that and go to the show tonight. That's just asking too much.
To be honest, I wouldn't have done it if I was vending either. With doing the shows live, I could pop on, off, I can go sit down. But vending solo, especially like you were, you got to be on. And I think you're kind of like me. And there might have been one, but I didn't see a chair at your booth. I mean, I don't sit down when I'm on working. I stay standing, engaged, all of that. So I would not have done it if I had been vending either. So probably a smart call, but I don't know. After going to the metal show that night, maybe you're not into smart calls. Who knows? I'm not sure.
I'm usually not. No, like I said, I'm paying the price for it today, but it was a good weekend.
Yeah, now I did fly home that night, and then of course my flight was delayed, so it was about 1 a.m. Before I got home, and then another hour and a half before I got to sleep. So anyway. Well, hey, thank you for being here tonight. It's a little late for introductions, but people that might not know you, can you give a little bit of an introduction? And we don't have to go all the way back to, garter snakes in the ditches or anything, but just tell a little bit about your company and what you do today.
Yeah. So I'm Brian Butler. I run 2 companies. Altitude Exotics is what I'm most known for, specializing in high-end crested gecko breeding. I also have another company called Free Gecko Giveaways. That's mostly gecko food, diets, merchandise, caging supplies, and I tie those in with sweepstake giveaways. I build kind of nice decorative centerpiece cages, and everybody that makes a purchase gets entered to win the cage, and I do a new giveaway about every 6 weeks or so. So that's what takes up the majority of my time, is playing with geckos, building cages, and keeping it all running.
That explanation was really helpful, because I couldn't figure it out. I got lost from like your gecko site to what did you say? It's called Free Gecko Giveaways. Yeah. So I ended up there, and I was like, I'm not even in the right place. I'm not even doing the right show prep. And I went back and I saw it, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. It is tied together, but I didn't know what it was. So I like business models. I like understanding different angles. So a couple things that came up today when I was checking things out, is it, and I could be totally wrong, correct me anywhere that I'm wrong. Am I right that you're not on Morph Market anywhere?
I am not. I've never been on Morph Market, no.
And I'm not looking for dirt here, but any strategic thought behind that? It seems like almost obligatory. So it's intriguing when I hear that somebody isn't in our industry.
Yeah, really. So I wrestle back and forth in my own head about this all the time. I'm trying to think how to phrase it in a way that doesn't sound braggadocious.
Yeah.
I'm not on Morph Market because I don't need to be. And I don't mean to say like, oh, I'm so good, I don't need Morph Market, but I do understand that there's a certain cachet I get. It makes it appear to be a more premium product, that every other gecko breeder in the space is posting up links to, please go check my Morph Market, please go check my Morph Market. And I'm basically the only one that doesn't utilize it. It's, if you want my animals, there's only one place to get them. You have to come to my website to do it.
Yep.
It's a give and trade. Like I said, it's kind of gives it a more premium feel, a premium cachet. I'm the only person that doesn't have to rely on someone else's site to sell geckos. On the other hand, I'm losing a lot of eyeballs because everybody's on Morph Market. The people that are just on there scrolling through browsing geckos don't see my stuff because I'm not there.
Right. So let me ask you this, and thank you for that answer. And there's no judgment here. If you come out and you say, oh, I'm most amazing and I'm whatever, then we might have, somebody might have some judgment. But if you just say, hey, honestly, it's a strategy that I use and here's why, you don't know an apology for that. But so then that begs the question, how do you go about, what's the funnel of getting people from out there everywhere, boom, down to Altitude Exotics website? And what is the website, by the way? It's just altitudeexotics.com. Okay. Is the main website.
I kind of try a bunch of different stuff. I've done a bunch of different things over the years. Social media is obviously a huge tool. That is a beast that you have to feed constantly.
Yeah.
And if you quit feeding it, it quits rewarding you. But if you do, and it's like it's hard because you have to do it consistently, constantly, nonstop for years and years and years before it will really pay off. And it's a very difficult thing to do. But if you can get a good social media following, it's definitely a huge help. YouTube, I've been off of YouTube for a while. I do still have some roots there. I still get a lot of views on my old videos, kind of all touching on all kinds of different gecko topics, care techniques, product reviews, sales videos. It's been a couple years since I've been off YouTube, mostly just to time constraints. I just don't have time to make videos anymore.
Right.
Always a good way. That was always the point of YouTube, was to funnel people into the gecko industry. It's like if somebody has a question about basic gecko care, I know those people are buying a cheap pet gecko, and that's not what I sell. I sell more high-end designer morphs. Mm-hmm. But if they get the answer about how to care for the gecko from me in 3 years, when they've fallen down the rabbit hole like we all have, and they're now looking to invest in some nicer morphs, they already know my name from 3 years ago when they were just trying to figure out what food do I need to feed.
Right. Did you find it? Did you find that it gave you a leg up when you did start on YouTube? So it sounds like there was, or was it always just a plan to have, hey, here's an informational batch, here's a beginning and an end of YouTube, or was that just something that evolved where you stepped away from it?
It just kind of evolved.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that I have plans to get back to. It's just a matter of time. It's a matter of making time and creating time to get on and make those videos and make that content. It's something I would love to get back to do. It all kind of started from getting messages online, and I got tired of typing out the same answers to people asking.
Right, yeah,
and I thought this would be a lot easier if I could copy and paste a link to a video that answers this question, rather than typing out a whole explanation about how to get shed off your gecko's toes.
I'm laughing out of empathy. Even this weekend, I won't say whose booth I was at, but I was at a friend's booth, just hanging out, just seeing how the show was going, and somebody was asking questions about ball python setup and enclosure, and it was like you said, it's the same questions you always hear over and over. And I leaned to my friend, I said, hey, do you have a care sheet on your website? And he goes, no. I said, okay, I'm going to butt in for a minute. And I put my phone right in front of him with my website. And I said, there's a care sheet right here. If you don't want to read it, you don't have to. There's videos that I recommend. There's videos that are better than what I made. So I use their videos. I got their permission. And it was exactly that same thing. But it, to your point earlier, though, it is a little bit of a funnel. If that person looked at the care sheet on my website, maybe they poked around elsewhere on it. And like you say, if you're seen as a resource, that's a leg up in trust and brand recognition and all that kind of stuff as well.
Exactly. It's all kind of like, it's all different roots that lead to the same tree of building, the trunk of your business as strong as you can.
Yeah. I found in my own experience very similar that I was very, very active on YouTube, and I still am with the live shows, but as far as produced content, and when I say very active, I think I have over like 600 videos or something. It's unbelievable in some ways when I say that out loud. I'm like, 600, yeah. What could I possibly talked about for 600 videos? But producing something with the editing, the depth of knowledge, the accuracy now that I would want to have versus when I was starting, and I was like, well, here's what I'm doing today. That's a little bit of a different thing, but it takes so much time, and the return is just so much stronger in other places. I see that you do a lot of, and I didn't get a chance to watch in depth a whole lot of them. I see you do a lot of, like, I think that they're live, but at least sales reels on Instagram. Take us through that process a little bit, and what do you experience on that? Do you see it work? Is it still a work in progress, an experiment? What do you see?
Yeah, so I kind of try new ideas every few years or so. The last few years I was doing, I call them weekly sale uploads. So every Friday I would put 10 or 12 geckos on my website, and I would do a YouTube video that would go up on Wednesday. That'll show you, hey, here's the geckos that will become available Friday. It's about a 6-minute video. I spend 30 seconds talking about each gecko, showing them to you, what I like about it, what I would do with it as a breeder. And then you've got, Wednesday, Thursday to watch those videos. And then Friday, you've kind of made up your mind if you want to buy one of those geckos. They all hit the website. I did that for a few years pretty consistently, usually runs from February to October or so, every Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year I decided to try something a little different where I did daily offerings. So instead of 12 geckos every Friday, it was one gecko every day. And I would post a 60-second clip of that gecko doing kind of the same thing, except it was only one gecko every night at the same time every night. And that way I liked having a consistent offering, and it also gave me the ability to kind of interact with people where I could say, here's what I have for tonight.
Right.
If this isn't what you're looking for, let me know. Leave me a comment. What is it that you're looking for? And I'll pull it and see if that can be tomorrow's daily offering. And I ran those pretty consistently, with a few exceptions. Like when I would do my big summer blowout sale, I quit doing daily offerings so they didn't collide. But basically from February up until mid-August, I did a gecko a day and a video a day, basically every day.
7 days a week.
7 days a week.
Man. And not the specific amounts are not my business, but did you find it was successful? Did you find that was a good avenue to move a gecko? Like on average, how many would you move a week from those videos, did you think?
So geckos, it varies seasonally pretty big. In the spring and early summer, the sales were pretty strong. And then always during the hottest part of the summer, the sales fall off quite a bit. Yeah. Just because shipping gets so difficult and people get worried about, nobody wants to buy a gecko that you're not going to see for 2 or 3 months because the temperatures get so hot. So right. Sales often slow down in the summertime.
Okay.
For the most part, especially in the early spring into the early summer, I was probably, I'd say it was 4 to 5 of the 7 geckos a week would sell within, 24 to 48 hours of being put up.
Yeah, that's great then. Yeah, I would have done 7 days a week for that as well then. That's great. Did you find, like I find sometimes, did you find that there was like almost a trickle down effect? Like, we didn't buy that gecko, but because we got interested and we saw some other things that you post, or we got into your website, we bought other things. Did you find that it fueled sales?
A little bit, yeah. I liked the idea because it encourages engagement. It's an easy 60-second video, and it's at the same time. I would do it at 7 o'clock Eastern every night, every day, and it made it easy for customers to engage with it. So it's 7:15. I can open my phone, and it's going to take me 60 seconds to check out what Brian had up today. Maybe it's something I like, maybe it's not. And then I would also I called it $50 Fridays, where every Friday I put up a gecko that was only $50, which is quite a bit cheaper than most of the geckos. Like usually most of them range between 180 and, up to the high end of the gecko morphs. So that was designed for, I know there's a lot of people that love my animals and would love to have something from me, but they're not in the market for a $300 lizard. They just want a pet. So here's $50 Fridays. If you get on Friday, it's going to be a younger animal, still a good-looking gecko, and it's a deal for $50.
Yeah, very nice. There's an expression that I love that says something along the lines of, if you treat it like a hobby, it'll be a hobby, and if you treat it like a business, it'll be a business. That is all an amazing example of treat it like a business, and eventually it'll come to fruition. You said something earlier too about social media paying off after years rather than something quick. I think myself included, we all want, some immediate recognition. And I'm probably somewhere in the middle of the years number. This is actually 3 years that I've been doing this show every Tuesday night without missing one. And it has built up and it has gone well. But on the other hand, if you ask somebody, hey, in 3 years, would you like to have 3,300 subscribers? They'd go, no, I want way more than that, Yeah. And so I understand that too. So where did you, I guess, what was the drive to keep at it for so long with the years? And was it the mindset that it took years, or did you just discover that after being so stubborn and dogged going after it?
A lot of it, yes. I'm just really stubborn. I've known since I was very, very young that I would never be happy working just a regular job working for someone else. I've done that for a long time, but long before I got into breeding geckos, I had all kinds of wild ideas on what business I was going to run to run my own company and be able to work for myself first time. It was music for a while, and that sort of worked, but only the smallest percentage of people who ever play get to do music professionally for a living. But I tried.
Let's pull the curtain back for people that don't know. Is it more lucrative to sell a $50 gecko or to play a drum gig in a 5-piece metal band?
It's way more lucrative to sell a $50 gecko unless there's a wall. There's a ceiling.
I know.
If you imagine everybody that plays music, there's only a few ladders in that ceiling, and 2 people get to climb through at a time, and everybody else is just hitting the ceiling.
Yeah.
And that ceiling is at a spot where all of the money you make goes back into your band, plus all of the extra money you have goes into your band, and you never actually make any money or get over that ceiling. And that's where most people end. That is definitely where my experience was.
And you get to live in a van with 4 other dudes with 3 pairs of clothes for the next 4 months.
In my case, there were 6 of us, so it was very comfy in those vans.
Yeah, I chuckle to myself. I don't know the gecko equivalent, but I chuckle to myself when people are like, why would you bother with these entry-level ball pythons at $200 or $300? I'm like, I sold 10 of them today. Do you know how hard I worked playing music for years to make what I made in that moment?
Yep.
Yeah, see, guys, I'm not the only one. This is all true stuff I'm telling you here. So
it's kind of ironic because I use that as an analogy when people now come to me and say, hey, I want to run a successful gecko breeding business. How do I do that? And I tell them, it's a lot like the music industry. A million people are going to try and do it, and 3 of us are going to break through and make this a career. Chances are you're not going to be one of those 3. So, figure out how to change that equation because it's stacked against you.
Well, yeah, and that it is stacked against us. But what do you think that there was value? Here's what I thought you were going to say: to become a successful reptile breeder, go play in a metal band for 5 years. Mine was restaurants. Go do restaurants for 26 years and you'll decide that you can grind out the challenges and the ups and downs because you're not doing that other grind anymore. And I think some of that, I hate to use the word spirit, but entrepreneurial spirit, there's that drive and that stubbornness where you go, all right, I got to figure this thing out because the alternative just isn't going to work for me. And that's kind of where I've been for the past 4 years. It took me a long time to get to that point. I was pretty successful at what I did in my career. And, there's another famous expression I like that salary is the drug that makes your dreams go away. I had a good salary, man. Why chase dreams if I had a good salary? But even that ran out when, COVID kicked that right out the door for me. But now it's that people are like, man, you work a lot. And I know, but I'm not going back to that other thing, man. That's just not going to cut it.
Right. That brings a couple things to mind for me. One is you definitely have to be realistic with yourself about finding what that thing is that you can be good enough at to break through that ceiling. Because it doesn't really matter what it is, whether it's trying to breed reptiles full-time as a profession, trying to become a touring, sustainable professional musician, trying to open a restaurant, because most restaurants fail if you try to open a restaurant. It's I liked music. I loved playing music a lot more than I like breeding geckos, and I freaking love my geckos. But I go to shows and I watch the guys on stage, and it almost feels the way it feels like when you see an old ex-girlfriend you never got over. That's the feeling I get. I watch these guys and I'm like, that's what I should be doing. That's what I want to be. But I had to at some point get realistic with myself and be like, I'm not good enough. It doesn't matter how much drive I have. I'm not going to make it in that industry. I'm not good enough. I don't have the vision. I don't have the talent. I don't have the willingness to sacrifice for it. But I did find that with reptiles. I am good enough. I was willing to make the sacrifices at this that I wasn't willing to do with music.
Anything either on the reptile or the music side, anything specific come to mind? I mean, they both have steep learning curves. Was it the physicality of the technique of the music versus knowledge, and that, you know, like you could, I don't know, I'm making this up. Like, could you assimilate the knowledge in reptiles easier than the physical technique of music? What was it for you?
I think a big part of it for me is, you know, it doesn't matter what you do, you've got to pay the sacrifice. And the sacrifice it was going to take to make the music thing work, I think I had a block in my head where I couldn't make that worth it in my mind. Like, we would always talk about, we need to go on the road. It doesn't matter if we have tours booked. Go to cities and play other shows. We need to build fan bases around the world. And I couldn't get it past my mind of like, I'm going to give up everything I have here. I'm not going to have a bank account. I'm going to be homeless, essentially. I'm going to, like, I would think about things like, if we do this, I'm going to be barreling into my mid and late 20s with no credit score, no bank account, no work experience, no job. And if this doesn't work, I mean, I've met a lot of 45-year-old dudes that failed at being musicians up until they were 44. And they're looking down at another 30 years of a really, really rough life. And I just wasn't willing to make that sacrifice.
Yeah. That's pretty insightful, though, as a 22-year-old? How old were you when you were thinking those thoughts?
Yeah, dude, about that age, 21, 22.
Man, most of us were way dumber at 21 and 22.
Oh, I was funny dumb. I'm funny dumb now, much less at 22. Trust me, I was no savant, but now the reptiles were as easy. It's kind of funny now that I think about it. I'm like, if I could be 22 now, I would feel way more confident about making a real run at a music career, because now you can build so much of your music career online. I see bands that have made their career, like, you still have to grind. You still got to go play shows and be on the road 40, 45 weeks a year. But you can build so much of yourself up on TikTok and Instagram and all these things like that. I feel like I would have been way better at than, like, we were going to shopping malls and trying to sell CDs for $5 a piece to anybody who looked like they might like metal music.
Oh, man.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah. And that part of the grind I never got to. We stayed in town. When I went out of town, it was with either a duo or a trio. So one vehicle, one hotel room, and the numbers had to at least work. And I remember I had this one fiddle player, and he was forever like, Adam, we just got to go on the road. And all you got to do is just make enough to stay on the road. And I remember being like, you're out of your damn mind. Anything I do is going to be to make enough money to make money, not to just stay on there. He's like, no, like tonight, this will get us like a week out on the road with gas and all. And I'm like, no, I'm going home and going to bed tonight is what I'm doing. So I never got to that point, but I mean, we were doing in town and regionally, even within the past 3 years, there was a point I was doing 100 gigs a year, which is pretty fun. I mean, 2 a week is a blast, but not living in a van doing 2 a week is primo. That's fine with me.
Yeah, it's a grind. I definitely found myself way better suited to the reptile world, where it is just as much, if not more, of a grind. But I've been grinding from my own basement for 16 years now. Yeah,
there you go. So how many shows a year do you do? We'll go from one tour to another. How many reptile shows a year do you do? And what's that?
Not very many.
Oh, not very many. Okay. No. And then, well, that sort of makes this next question easier. What are the shows that you do choose to do?
So I really like the super shows out on the West Coast. I've been pretty successful out at the super shows. I love the staff. I love the guys that run them. They're great. They're easy to work with. They treat me really well. Their shows are well run. The problem is, being in Denver, we're 12 hours from everywhere. So it doesn't matter if I want to go, like, any of the NRABC shows. Dallas and St. Louis are both 12 hours. Chicago's 14. And then all of the super shows, LA, Anaheim, those are all 16 hours away. So it doesn't matter where I go. It's a 12-plus hour drive. Yeah. I went through a phase. I used to do a lot of shows. I was doing shows like 4 to 5 a year here in the Denver area. I was going to Kansas City twice a year. I was going to Vegas twice a year. And then I just got I got burned out on it, and then I went through I don't know, 7 or 8 years span where I really struggled with depression and just didn't leave my house, and I didn't vend shows at all for, it was about 7 years almost that I didn't vend any shows, and then kind of started back up again about it's actually 2 years ago today. I just saw the memory on Facebook.
Oh, really?
2 years ago today I did the first show I'd done in almost 7 years.
Wow. I don't want to dive too much into somebody else's personal matters, but whatever kicked you out of that funk and got you going 2 years ago, I'm happy that it did, and I'm happy to see you out and about vending for whatever that's worth, man. I mean that. So, yeah, absolutely. So where's the balance for you? Obviously, apparently the website, the Instagram sales, that's all doing well. The shows are valuable for you. Where do you find a balance between your personal presence and your sort of digital social presence? Or is there a line between the two, or is there a focus or a priority between the two?
Most of my priority for a while now has been like an online digital presence. I made a very conscious decision. When was that? Probably 7 years ago now, that I went through the first 7 or 8 years running this, trying to be a faceless business, because I, for some reason, felt like that made me seem more successful, more professional. I always spoke in the company plural. It was we did this, we did that.
Yeah, right.
And then about 7, 8 years ago, something like that, 6 years ago, I made a very conscious effort that I just didn't think that was the right way to go. And I very consciously decided I'm going to make my face the face of the company. And it was, I didn't connect. I wasn't connecting with any humans at that point, much less with my customers. I didn't have relationships inside the reptile industry. And I thought that I could see that was damaging, not only my personal well-being, being that insulated, but also the health of my business. People, these are pets. People have even the high-end ones that people are investing good money into animals to breed and recoup their investment down the road. Especially with crested geckos, I think more than other reptiles, people are personally invested in their animals. They have a personal attachment to their animals. I really think that is a theme in the gecko world that is lacking some in a lot of the rest of the reptile world. I see a lot of snake breeders they're very personally invested in reptiles as a whole in the reptile industry, but they don't get personally attached to individual animals. And a lot of even the bigger people who are spending, higher monetary values on geckos, they're still getting personal attachments to these animals. And I just thought, that's the way the gecko world works. We're a little bit different than the rest of the reptile industry. And I think it will serve, like I said, not only me personally well, but my business well, to give people a face to connect to, give them a person to connect to. I need to put myself out there and be the face of the business and give people a name to attach to the gecko they just got. Is essentially the easy way to boil it down. Is if people like me, they're going to want to buy one of my animals.
Yeah. Was that a sort of a slow evolution, or was there a kind of a boom moment where you're like, this has to stop?
It was
or
much
this has
more
to change.
Kind of a light switch moment. Yeah, it was kind of a big mix. It was like a big amalgamation of the business not running very well, and I got to a point in my life where the business was making what I thought at 28 years old was good money. It was, not good money, but at 28 years old, when I'd been working part-time at UPS most of my life, I was like, wow, I can pay my bills and not have to, count my pennies till Friday. This is great. Life has never been better. And I just put everything on autopilot, and I had very few friends, and I didn't interact with anybody in the gecko world. And I was just kind of on autopilot for a long time.
I see.
And eventually I was like, not only do I need to get out of living this way, but my business is not growing. It's gone stagnant. Like I'm only maintaining essentially. I'm not doing anything new. I'm not growing. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. On the to bring it back to present day, on the growing evolution, it sounds like you're sort of you talked about changing strategies or experimenting with strategies every few years or every X amount of time, growing, evolving. What are the opportunities to do that in geckos? Again, as a ball python guy, I know there's always new morphs and endless array of possibilities. Do you find that in geckos? Are there new morphs being discovered? Are there genetic research being done? What do you see in geckos?
God, the gecko world is kind of a mess in that way for a lot of different reasons.
Okay.
For years and years, the public knowledge was geckos don't have real morphs. And it was this was 10, 12 years ago, but it was very, very vogue to say ridiculous things like, oh, breeding geckos is like mixing an apple with a banana and a car tire pops out because you just never know what you're going to get. And it was like, no, geckos have always had morphs. They've always been genetically predictable. We just didn't know what they were for a lot of different reasons. For one, the population that was ever taken out of the wild is incredibly small.
Okay.
Ball pythons, it's been a few years since I've paid attention, but I know they set a quota on how many ball pythons are allowed to be imported every year.
Yeah. And this probably isn't a popular opinion, but I've got to think we have plenty in captivity at this point to.
Right. I remember it was years and years ago, but I remember seeing the CITES paperwork come out and they had set the quota for that year at like 30,000.
Yeah.
Where they were allowed to harvest. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. But at the same time, that's where new morphs come from. You'd be able to tell me better, but I know almost every morph has come from wild caught animals. Very few pop up in breeding collections organically.
I don't know that to be the case now. I think originally, yes. I think now that we know more about recessive genes, we understand that better. We have some DNA genetic testing. Obviously, genetic testing won't tell us something that hasn't been discovered, but if we think it's something else that has been discovered, and we can exclude it from that, then it does. I just think, and I could be totally wrong. This is totally speculative, and in my mind, even if we've taken, I guess I don't know how big of an area we've taken from, but there's so many that we've brought in. I got to feel like we have a really massive sample size that has plenty to be undiscovered just yet. And there's also people that argue, and I don't know if I believe this or not, although I don't know if I disbelieve it, but I don't know if I believe it. There's also people that argue that the mutations are taking place in our collections. So even if it wasn't there when it started in our collection, that just like in nature, these mutations happen. We're breeding so many in captivity that the mutations can happen here. That seems a little shoehorning unexplainable things or things we don't understand into an explanation, but I can't disprove it, and I don't think that there's the evidence to disprove it. So I guess factually, yeah, mutations happen. That's what all of these are. So, but yes, I get your point. Most of them are going to come from the wild. That's where you're going to find the untapped, treasures that nobody else will likely have.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the issues with crested geckos is we don't get wild crested geckos. They took less than 500 animals total out of the wild before imports were shut down completely. And now, worldwide, I have to imagine the number we're hatching every year is probably close to 250,000.
Yeah.
Across the world, and they all came from 500 adults. Like, we don't see new morphs. That's why there aren't the number of morphs like there are in ball pythons or corn snakes or retics or any of these animals we wild collect. And the other issue with trying to figure out crested gecko genetics is there is no wild type crested gecko. Like, you can get, the way it was explained to me early on in my career was if you have a gecko that has who knows how many untold different genes combining, if you give me a corn snake and you say it's got 6 different genes in it, you can theoretically breed it back to some normals, reverse engineer it, and isolate those genes, figure out what's going on.
Correct, yeah.
There's no such thing as a wild type crested gecko. So all of our geckos are giant mixes of all these different geckos that we have. Not to mention crested geckos in captivity aren't actually crested geckos because they took geckos from two parts of the island, and those are now considered two different species, which makes me laugh when everybody sees that, oh, one time I bred a cresty and a chihuahua together, and the hybrids or the devil crowd comes out and wants to cancel you for making a hybrid. Every single crested gecko in captivity is a hybrid of two different species. None of them are Corlophus ciliatus. They don't exist. So the whole thing is a giant mess. Luckily, most of the industry now has come around to the fact that crested gecko genetics can be discovered, and this isn't just throw two together and who knows what the hell's going to come out. It just takes some work to try and figure it out, and there's a lot of people working to figure it out, but then you also get people that claim to have something figured out and don't, people that claim to have something figured out that's different than these people, and then you got some people who claim to have all the answers, but the only place you can find them is on their website where they sell their geckos, but I'm the only one that knows everything, so go to my website. By the way, buy something while you're there. Like, it's messy from a million different sides. I'm sure I'm included on one of those messy sides, so it's definitely an interesting industry.
All right, so take me, I have lots of questions now, and I'm wildly intrigued now. Take for us crested gecko dummies, take us all the way back to the beginning. What island are we talking about? Where are they coming from?
So they come from an island called New Caledonia. It's kind of like if Australia's here and New Zealand is backwards on the camera. So Australia would be here, New Zealand's up here. It's kind of right here in the middle.
Okay, all right. And
tiny little island.
There's a lot of geckos on that island. Is that correct?
There's a bunch of different species. Chihuahuas come from there. Gargoyle geckos, Leachianus, Saracenorum. There's 7 or 8 more.
Okay, I was just saying, I see the T-shirts with like 7 or 8 species drawn on them. Okay, all right, gotcha. All right, so that clarifies that for me. Actually, let's not, because this is a good question that I think even ball python people can benefit from. Because if I'm arguing that we probably don't need to yank any more from the wild, then maybe that's what this next question is. So let me pay some bills really quick, because there's some really good people that take really good care of me. Give me 2 minutes to do that.
Yep.
Audience, don't go anywhere, because what I'm going to ask Brian is, if there's no more to take from the wild and it's all here in captivity, how in the world does any one person get ahead and establish themselves in an excellent manner if there's nothing new coming in? So that's what I want to know about in a minute. You can think that over, Brian.
Absolutely.
Guys, use REDLINE shipping is what I recommend that you do. It's a fantastic experience from a customer standpoint, from your animal standpoint, reliability. These are reptile people shipping your reptiles, and they're good people too. I know that I'm biased. Obviously, there's a business relationship between myself and REDLINE, but there's also a reason for it. Much like all the brands that are on here taking care of me, I'm either a customer or believer in what they do, and REDLINE are just excellent people doing wonderful things. Thanks again to Robin for the trip up to Denver to work this weekend. It's the most fun I've had working for other people in a long time. It's fantastic. Use the promo code PROPER5. You're going to get $5 off your next shipping label. Shedtesting.com. That is Charlie. Shedtesting.com has been rebranded. It used to be Gray Rider Reptiles. Same man, same person behind the scenes, just a simpler message. You don't have to understand that Gray Rider is shedtesting.com anymore. It's just shedtesting.com. So go check out shedtesting.com. That is Charlie. He is curating his own genetic tests. He's working with people around the world and, being able to make progress much quicker than some other people might be if you do it all in-house. He is researching his own genetic tests, though. But to me, most importantly, Charlie's the one testing your sheds. He is customer service. He is the one reporting all of the answers back to you. And if you need help, he's the one answering the phone that you get to talk to about the product. Go check out shedtesting.com. Use the promo code PROPER15. You're going to get 15% off of 2 orders. In each order, you can order as many individual shed tests as you want. So 2 times. Bulk up and get yourself 15% off of those tests. Next is Argen Reptiles. That's Robbie down in Greer. And I'm grabbing my phone because he texted me some very specific details tonight of things he's got going on. First off, again, I've worked with Robbie professionally, and great person, somebody I highly recommend personally. Robbie says, it might be nice if you mention that I have double-het zebra clown available, and double het zebra DG that are coming available. So keep an eye on Robbie's site if either of those projects excite you. If you go to his website, RGen Reptiles, and get on his email list, he makes all of his animals available on the email list first, and everybody else gets, the crumbles afterwards. So check that out. That's Robbie again at RGen Reptiles. Next is Portuguese pythons. Talk about excellent people. That's Danny and Renee Rocha out in Chino, California. I actually spoke to Danny this week. We were hanging out on the phone talking rodents a little bit. But I did ask him what he's got available on the site right on Morph Market right now. There's some very cool Ultramel project stuff. There is a super blackhead Ultramel male that's on there. There's a pied Ultramel on there. There's a lot of pied Ultramel project ingredients and combos. Go check them out. Their hatchling season is just now starting, so you're going to see their inventory explode. Check them out on Instagram for all their quality reels and animal information. Trevor at Ball Labs, he's out of Aurora, Colorado, and I got to hang out with him this weekend as well. Excellent person. Trevor, unlike some people that say we should have a focus on what we do, Trevor likes to go after everything. Genes that maybe have fallen out of favor, you haven't heard of in a while, that could be rediscovered and maybe unlock some magic with new and current genes. He's also working with Puzzle, Ultramel Clown, VPI Exanthic, Tri-Stripe, Monsoon, Zebra, and Sunset. I could tell you he's doing it the right way. He's one of the very few rodent breeders that is licensed and legal to sell rodents in Colorado. When I say very few, I mean like 5 or 6. So again, he's doing it the right way. He's a good guy. Go check him out. On a side note, aside from any advertising, there was a breeder colleague in Colorado that recently passed away very unexpectedly. I believe his family has entrusted Trevor to sell his collection for them. Those animals will go to a good cause for the family. The family can use that money. Go check out Trevor at Ball Labs. Let him know that you'd like to help out or see what's available for that family. And I believe you have to follow his Instagram, but I believe this Friday night there's going to be a live auction on one of my colleagues' podcasts. And I'm mostly sure who it is, but I don't want to say the wrong one. So go check out Ball Labs for that. Do some good for the neighborhood and the community on that, okay? Last but not least is Chris at B and S Reptilia, the original properroyals sponsor. We're still in business all these years later. Chris is my vending partner at Tinley. We own the table together. Chris is B and S Reptilia because he has many different species of ball python, blood python, locality boas, colubrids, pituophis, if that means something to you, the bull snakes and the pine snakes. Chris will have the legal permits to have the bull snakes at Tinley this year. I think we'll be one of the only tables with those on the table, and they will be legal and on the up and up. So that's just around the corner. We're talking like 5 weeks. Come on out to Tinley and check out some bull snakes with Chris. If any of those other species interest you, definitely get a hold of them. Big thanks to Chris. Brian, thank you for your patience. Audience, thank you for your patience. So I know that you take a lot of pride in sort of pushing forward, moving the needle forward on morphs. I have, without naming them, I've seen some of the prices. They seem pretty expensive, so there's got to be a high demand, which tells me there's probably a very low supply. They're probably a very exclusive a number of those that you're making that other people are not. How do you do this if you don't have, quote, new blood coming into the market, which is me talking completely out the other side of my mouth from what I was just saying? I acknowledge that. So how do you do that?
So a big part of it, like I said, is recognizing that there are genetic traits out there that we can discover within the population that we have that have gone overlooked. I'm a pretty firm believer that most of the morphs we have in Crested Geckos have been around for about as long as Crested Geckos have, and it just took a long time for people to start recognizing things. So, putting in that work and gaining that knowledge for yourself is one. Obviously being open-minded enough to learn and gain knowledge from others.
That helps. Yeah, right.
It is a shockingly hard thing for a lot of people to do. I think everybody's guilty of that at some points, myself included in the past.
Sure.
it's definitely something that's difficult to do, but that is a point where you can kind of get an edge, is be open to not thinking you've got everything figured out and listening to what other people have to say and their experiences and what did they discover and how does that fit with your own breeding results. And those are all ways that you can kind of build yourself up. A lot of it is also consistency and reliability, building trust with your customer base. It's not all about the animal quality. There's a number of breeders that had incredible animals in the gecko world over the years that have withered and disappeared because they were not pleasant people to deal with, or they didn't treat their geckos in a pleasant way. It doesn't really matter how nice your geckos are. If nobody wants to work with you, then you're not going to last very long.
It's amazing how basic of a truth that is in many, many industries. I've tried to bang that into chefs' heads for 2.5 decades. You can have the best food. If you're going to behave a certain way, you're not going to have the best people around you. And even if you don't see the customers, if you don't have the good people around you, you're not going to make it either.
Yeah.
From a technical standpoint, I'm guessing your stock now has been line bred. You've isolated the traits that you're interested in. You're highlighting the traits. Now you're thinking, all right, I've got this isolated and identified. What do I cross it with for what predictable outcome? Is that how that works? Was there a time when you were just accumulating cool looking animals and you had to go through and try and isolate what was happening in them? Or was there enough of a serious belief that there was a genetic sort of pathway rather than just a 52 card pickup genetics that you were talking about earlier?
Well, even messier than that, very early on, I didn't even have an evolved enough mindset to think that far ahead. And it just became, I think, the game that a lot of us start at of, oh, that's a cool gecko, I want to buy it. And that one's a cool gecko, and that one looks neat. And then I had a light switch moment where I looked around and I think at that point I had about 100 geckos, and I was like, cool, I bought like all the geckos I thought were neat looking when I could afford a new gecko, and now I've got 100 geckos and I have no idea what my goals are. I don't know what my brand identity is. I don't know what I'm trying to do. Right. And I actually sat down with a pen and paper and I wrote out, here's 6 different breeding projects that I want to do. And then I made slots for every gecko I need to fill those breeding groups. And then I plugged in the geckos that I owned, and I looked at it and I went, well, now I have a bunch of open spots. And I also have a bunch of geckos over here that don't fit any of those spots. Mm-hmm. So now we've got to start selling off all the geckos. It's a very inefficient way to build, but that is the way that I learned the hard way how to do it.
If it makes you feel any better, that's what every ball python breeder goes through. We buy our banana, we buy our bell, we think, we get a pied, not knowing how recessives work, and we breed a banana to a pied, and we get this normal looking thing, and we say, what happened? We learn. Okay, so you're not alone if you felt like you were. On the project diagram, how close have you found that you stuck to that over the years? Do you ever add to that? Do you add new wish list projects, or is it just refining and adding to those sort of North Star projects for yourself?
Like big picture, it's moved quite a bit over the years. There are projects that, like on that original list that I wrote up, that was 14 years ago. Yeah, there's still some of those projects I still have today, and I'm still refining. That's the other part when you ask, like, how can you stand out in a world where there aren't that many morphs like there are in ball pythons? You know, the upside to crested geckos is the morphs are genetically reproducible, but there is so much natural variation in how the geckos look that there's a lot of room to play within the morphs. Like the Dalmatian trait is genetic, but the amount of expression you can get in that trait is you can play with that. You can line breed for that. You can enhance that through the right breeding combination. So 2 geckos that both have the Dalmatian trait, one of them has enormous black spots that cover more than half the gecko's body, and the other one has a small smattering of black spots. They're genetically similar animals, but we can line breed them to, pretty drastically change the results in some cases.
Yeah.
So that's one fun thing to play with. So there's projects that I've been doing that with for a long time. There's plenty of projects I have now that just didn't exist back then, or I didn't know about. There's been ones that I've abandoned, both due to lack of interest and lack of space.
Oh, right.
Every year, I've been in the same place since 2012, and I know how many geckos I can fit here. I know how many breeding groups I can fit. And there's been times where I'm like, I would love to buy one of these and build that project, but what am I going to sell to fit it? Because I don't want to get any bigger than I am.
Mm-hmm. I got you. I empathize. I usually ask this at the very beginning of the show, but I realize I'm remiss. I love stats. What size facility do you have? If you're willing to share sort of the number of animals or the capacity, any other exciting things like how many? I feel bad. No, I was going to say, what do these eat? I know what they eat. They don't eat a mix of cricket and Pangea mix, I'm guessing, or the insect mix. Tell us a little bit about some of these stats and the metrics of what you're working with.
Yeah, so I've got I run it all out of a house. I bought this house years and years ago because it had one big room that was perfect for all the animals I have at the time. And the business now takes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the rooms in the house. 5 of those are just animals. So total, I've got about 2,000 square feet. This year is kind of a planned down year for me. So I have quite a few less animals than I normally do. I've got a lot of younger breeder females. I know younger girls don't produce as many viable eggs. I also wanted to downsize to kind of refresh some of the projects and leave space to build for the future. So I've actually got about 70 less females breeding this year than I did in the previous few years.
Wow.
When I'm at like max capacity of what I can possibly fit here, and then at like the end of peak hatchling season is when I hit max amount of animals. I can top just over 4,000 animals. I've probably got closer to 3,000 right now. It's a lower breeding year. I'm probably going to hatch 60% of what I did last year. Like I said, I've got 70 fewer breeders than I did before, and it's like I said, it was a planned year. It was orchestrated to be this way.
So, couple questions again for a ball python dummy. How many clutches, I guess, but how many eggs would you get from one female a year? They can go far more than just one time a year, right?
Yeah, so they lay 2 eggs at a time, and they lay roughly every 30 days. And normally they lay 6, 7 clutches a year. Usually from like a seasoned, reliable, healthy girl, you can rely on 10 solid hatchlings a year, 10 to 12. Some years you can get a real good year and get 14 or even 16. A lot of first-year breeder girls, if you get 2 or 3 viable eggs, you're lucky.
Okay, so through the course of the year, a little bit higher than ball pythons. But at first I was like, wow, 2 every 30 days. But you're saying that there's a season to that. That there's a beginning and ending to when that comes. So it's not 24 a year. It's not just it's
no.
Okay.
No.
And then how long does it take the males and the females respectively to get to sexual maturity where they can be producing for you?
Usually around 2 years.
Okay.
Males are usually 1.5 to 2 years. Females are 2 to 2.5 years.
Yeah. Okay. So that's really analogous to ball pythons when it comes to that sort of the math. Then if you got 3,000 geckos, that's a hell of a lot of those little cups of silicone cups of food. Do you have staff? Do you automate that? Do you have a machine that squirts them, and then you could still do that like a shelf life in the fridge where you can like batch a mass, a month at a time, or how do you do this stuff?
No, so we mix food fresh every day. One of the keys is I don't feed every gecko every day. A lot of people, so the common question I get when you're building your collection, these geckos need fed 2 to 3 times a week. So they go, okay, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday is my feeding day, and they're feeding all 100 of their geckos every day. Well, I can't do that. I've got 3,000 geckos. You can't do everything every day.
Right.
So we feed 5 days a week, but it rotates what's getting fed every day. So we're always feeding, but we're not always feeding everything.
Right.
And then we mix food fresh every day. So we've got like rough notes. I have a calendar that has, it's like a calendar, and then it has like all of today's tasks from Monday through Friday listed out.
Sure. Yep.
And 2 circles with magnets. So when we complete something, you just move the magnet over. I'm very visual, so I like to have that visual. Okay, this is done, that's done. It's like a checklist.
Yep.
And we have notes on there on roughly how much food needs to be made each day for whatever that day's schedule for feeding is. We get crickets shipped in often, not all the time in Denver. It's hard. We don't have a reliable local breeder. And with the weather changes, it's hard to get stuff shipped in the winter and summer. But much of the year, I get crickets shipped in, and those get fed off throughout the week as well.
Okay, so you're not in the cricket growing business for your own use or for sale?
I tried that. Crickets aren't difficult to breed, but they're difficult. They're not difficult to raise. They're very intensive to raise.
Okay.
The hard part for me was like, okay, so I can get crickets to lay eggs and I can hatch the eggs and you keep them warm. But then a cricket from going to like, 1 day pinhead up to even a half an inch to feed younger geckos, they molt like 6 times. And you end up with so much cricket molt, and then you have to you're just constantly separating crickets from mulch and putting them into new, cleaner tubs and feeding. And it was just like, and now I can go through when I get crickets in routinely, I feed off 15,000 crickets a week. It's like the amount of space and work and just man hours it would take me to have 15,000 crickets the right size every week to get fed off. That means I really need 50,000 crickets on hand.
Right. Yeah.
It's just not feasible.
Yeah. That math is that's much less friendly than rodent. So rodent math is actually pretty good. Well, still proving that to myself, but so far it's been percentage wise, it's much more profitable than any of these ball pythons. I'll tell you that. And more reliable as well. So I hear you using the plural again, and you gave yourself a hard time before for using we. So what I'm guessing that there's a crew these days. There's at least more than one of you. Is that correct?
I do generally have some staff. Normally I have me and one full-time employee, and the full-time employee is usually about 35 hours a week, and they do the majority of the feeding and cage cleaning. And then I do a smaller percentage of feeding and cage cleaning, and everything else, photos, sales, shipping,
right,
running the whole other dry goods business, all of that stuff. So usually there's 2 of us. I think that number is going to be going up soon. I'm actually looking, my full-time girl just quit. She got a really good job out in Florida and relocated back. She's from Florida. She has family out there, and she got a great job offer and is going back to vet tech school out there.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
She's got herself set up nicely out there, and I'm looking for a full-time person. I've got some part-time help at the moment, and looking for my new full-time 35 hour a week person. And then I get part-time help that comes in to do extra cleaning and tub swapping work and that kind of thing as well.
Gotcha. All right. We're coming in the home stretch. So audience, if you have any questions for Brian, let us know. Also, I'm a little bit remiss in this. I should have said it at the very beginning. If you're hanging out with us tonight, there's kind of a big event in our country going on tonight that started about 15 minutes ago. So I'm thankful for you being here. We can watch either thing on replay if you feel like watching it. Otherwise, it's a safe place to hang out here and get a little break from that stuff too. So anyhow, I'm happy to have you all here. Thank you for being here tonight. Let's go all the way back to the business models. And I'll just leave it at these 2 questions, and you can answer in any way or time frame that you like. One being, what do you find to be the most successful way to drive people to your website? You don't have all your eggs in that basket, but you have a lot, and that kind of goes back to choosing not to use Morph Market. And so that's your inventory list, and your showcase is kind of there on the website. And 2, what led to this other business model that to me, and I mean this respectfully, I'm very curious about it. So there's not anything disrespectful. It seems difficult and a little bit convoluted on the top of everything to go, I'll give this away. You get your entries by buying things here. That's unique. To me, not understanding makes it difficult, but it's clearly something that you've put thought into and a lot of work into executing on your website. And it does look well done. It doesn't look, there's nothing negative with it other than I've never heard that before, which can be a good thing. That means it's unique. Where did that come from? How's that working? Is it proven to you, or is it still an experiment, or a little bit of both? So those are my two questions, the website and the unique business model on the giveaway sweepstakes page.
So as far as the website goes, the thing that I found has the best success with that is consistency. For one, you have to come up with unique ideas to give people a reason to want to go to my website. It's easy to jump on Morph Market, browse through 5,000 other breeders, 25,000 available geckos, and see if they have what you want, versus going to my one website. You have to go out of your way to go to my domain and look at just my 70 animals for sale. So it's important to give people a reason to do that. And one of those reasons is consistency. It's why I do the daily offerings, a new gecko every day. It's why I would do, prior the Friday updates, where there's 10 or 12 new geckos every Friday. And another part of that consistency is I call them event sales, where I do usually 3 times a year, like the summer blowout sale. My biggest one is Black Friday.
Okay.
Black Friday is absolutely massive for me. I think this year will be my 9th consecutive Black Friday sale. The first year, I just thought, well, it'd be fun because at that point, nobody in the gecko world did Black Friday. That was back when it was still like finish Thanksgiving dinner and go to Walmart because the doors open at 2:00 and you can fist fight over it.
Right. Yeah. Get your Cabbage Patch doll. Yeah.
Right. So I kind of thought, well, let's do it'll just be fun. Let's do a Black Friday sale. So one year, and it was like, life was different back then. I put like 12 geckos up and called it a Black Friday sale. And the next year I was like, well, that really wasn't like Black Friday is an event. Like that's all you hear about around Thanksgiving, especially back then when Black Friday was like really getting popular. So then I thought, okay, let's do a live Black Friday sale where I would do a live video on Facebook and show off. I got 20 geckos that are on sale for Black Friday and did a live video showing them off. And I just kind of evolved, making it more and more of an event to where I got to where it's at today. The last few years now, my Black Friday sale it usually ends up around 300 geckos.
Wow. Okay.
And it's grown to the point that Black Friday weekend has gotten so big for me that it ends up being about 1/3 of my annual income.
Wow.
Comes between Thanksgiving morning and Cyber Monday afternoon. It ends up being about like 1/3 of my sales for the year because it's just grown into such a big thing. But that's, part of that answer is consistency. Is people now, they know that that's when I save the nicest geckos for Black Friday. There's going to be an enormous selection, 300 plus animals. And I've kind of gamified it. I like fun. It's more fun when things are fun.
Yeah.
So I came up with this idea that was half born out of wanting to make it fun and half born out of my old website was glitchy as hell. And I was trying to figure out how to get around some of the limitations of that website.
Yeah.
And all of that kind of, it's a convoluted story on how it got me to where I am. But now the way I do it is Monday, like the Monday before Thanksgiving, I put all the geckos on the website. So you can see them, you can see all their stats, their pictures, their prices, but you can't buy them. And then Thanksgiving morning at 8 a.m., everything opens up and they're for sale. So if there's something you really want at face value, you're paying ticket price, you get it Thanksgiving Day.
Okay.
And then 24 hours later, Black Friday, I do a whole game where I post a video every hour from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Every hour on the hour, I go on all my socials and post a video. And this hour, the discount is blank. And next hour, the discount will be better. But you don't know what it's going to be. So you then get to decide.
You don't know if the animal will still be there. Yeah.
Or do you want to wait for a better discount? But if you wait and someone else buys it, you miss out. And we play this whole game for, it's an exhausting day. I do 13 hours of live streams. posting all these discounts, and it just becomes a fun game of how cheap can you get the animal before someone else gets it. It's the most fun I have running this business all year. I absolutely love Black Friday. It's so much fun interacting with everybody. I do a smaller version of that for a summer blowout sale in the summer. I've really found that like having those big event sales where I get to interact with people and I make it fun, and you're also getting a good deal, and there's things you can do to try and make your own deal better. Like that brings a lot of, it gives people a reason to want to go to my site versus let's just browse Morph Market tonight.
Right. Man, I will tell you, I absolutely hate Black Friday. I don't like running sales. I don't like the competition. I would rather vend a February show in Minnesota with Reptiles than apply myself on Black Friday. But you have just made it sound like absolutely something that I'm missing out on, and something that I should. You got so many wheels going, like, and this industry is neat because so many of us came from other places to here. So like I recently met another breeder whose daytime career is applying game theory, literally making tabletop and video games. And I'm like, this is what I got to do. I got a partner. I got to figure this out. I got to apply some game theory and make this exciting and figure out how to do it. We didn't even tell the story of all the times that we tried to go live in Denver this weekend and it didn't work. I'm much more happy. I'm so much happier that we got into this long format discussion. This is fantastic. So I really thought you were going to give like a technical answer of like, well, you do this with SEO, you buy this number of ads and this and that. You didn't say any of that stuff. It's completely you thinking about the customer experience rather than a digital YouTube algorithm shortcut.
Yeah, I don't pay. I have paid for ad space very, very little over the years. I generally don't do paid ads. Yep. I'll do like some paid ads right before Black Friday just to get the word out, like as a reminder that's coming. Or I do paid ads for the other website and business because it's brand new and just launching, and I'm trying to get it into the lexicon so people can understand what it is and what I'm doing with it. That was the other half of your question. I can
right. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
So that new business, the freegeckogiveaways.com, that business was essentially me trying to solve a bunch of problems. And every time I would solve a problem, I would come up with a new one. And then it was just a game in my head of how can I solve these problems? And the original problem, years and years ago, I used to breed wholesale geckos. There was a point when I had this place packed even more than it is, like to an unsafe level with animals. It was just like the aisles were this narrow and it was ridiculous. But I had it in my head, like you've got to sell geckos wholesale. I had two divisions, I called it. I had the high-end division and the wholesale division.
Sure.
And I was catching like 5,000 geckos a year, but 2/3 of them were going to Petco for, $15 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to the point where the wholesale price kept dropping, and I had a realization that I'm like, it's not worth the money, and this isn't fun. More importantly than the money, it's not fun, because I thought about, well, I can make it worth the money, but I got to get a bigger space, and I need to hatch 30,000 geckos a year.
Yeah, you just got to keep scaling. Yeah, and it's just just numbers in business. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, that's not why I got into this. I don't want to just do numbers in business, and I don't want to sell cheap lizards. That's not what's fun for me. Now it's been a decade, and I'm realizing in my business mind that was the question that I was trying to solve for was, well, now I'm really, really good at selling geckos to people who want to spend $400 on a lizard. I'm not very good at getting money out of people who want a $50 pet lizard, and that's a vastly, vastly bigger market. So how can I get a piece of that market and also give them an upgraded experience from whatever they're getting right now? Because there's no point in getting into it if I'm not going to improve their experience. I'm not going to get their business, and I'm not doing anything for them. And to me, that's equally important. If I'm not making your experience better, why am I doing it?
Yeah, you're just back to numbers and business again then.
Yeah, it's back to numbers and business. I want to connect with people. I want to give. That's why I like doing there's times with the Black Friday sale that people will something just doesn't sell and they end up getting a $4,000 lizard for 55% off. And it kills me because I know if I just sit on that lizard till February, I can sell it for full price at an expo. But that's not the point. The point is it's fun. I like doing these deals. I like connecting. So I kind of started trying to solve all those problems. And I thought, well, I don't want to sell $50 lizards as pets, but I could sell food and caging supplies. And then I got into, like, more importantly, like, people that get a $50 pet lizard end up falling in love with these animals. It's inevitable. We all do it. And people that fall in love with their animals are probably going to like t-shirts and merch and other fun things that have to do with these geckos. So then it was, okay, well, there's already so many people that sell food in several websites, and I also have to give you a reason to want to come buy it from me instead of on Amazon where you get shipping in 2 days. So that's where I bred into the freegeckogiveaways.com. We're all buying food. Everybody, even like I've got 4,000 geckos, I've got to buy food. Somebody, my cousin has 1 gecko. He's got to buy food for that one too. So why not build a site where you get the same food you're getting everywhere else, but you're also getting entries. You know, like I said, I was solving for the how can I service the pet end of the market if I'm not providing $50, $40 pet geckos. Well, most of those people aren't spending $1,000 on a really elaborate cage setup. So what if I build a $1,000 really elaborate cage setup that's made of beautiful polished oak and has a misting system built in, and it's a piece of artwork that you could have in your living room instead of having a 10-gallon cage in your kid's bedroom where their gecko lives. And now when you buy your food, you get entered and maybe you win that cage and you get to upgrade your pet's cage. It gets to be a centerpiece of your house in this beautiful cage. You can also pick up a cute t-shirt with a funny something on it. I've got like coffee mugs, t-shirts, all kinds of license plate holders, gecko food, plants, caging supplies, all kinds of different stuff.
It's a masterclass. Like anybody that was like, I'm not into geckos tonight, they missed out on the whole masterclass. Like the details are really cool, and thank you for sharing. Like I think that some people are really protective of what is really a proprietary idea, but for me, ideas are always about who can do it the best or who puts into the work and who sees it through. So it's one thing to think it up, which you did, and you deserve credit on that. But another to like I say, to see it through and to make it work. And here's the funny part. I have a gecko in a 10-gallon aquarium in my son's bedroom, and I do buy food every however long it is. It's really my wife and son's thing. But in my mind, I'm going, well, we should be buying this is exactly where we should be buying our food from. Maybe we will get the living room thing. I mean, it's really great to hear that explained. And
that makes me feel good because that's my whole idea is, like I said, I want to service the market, but I want to do it in a better way than has been done before. Yeah. And I wish I could give everybody this beautiful centerpiece living room cage. I can't, but you get a chance. I try and do, so my food, I do free shipping on the website. That's something I've tried to work in that I think is important for me as well. I do free shipping on the website, so you never have to worry about where do I live, what does shipping cost, all of that. Like the price is the price. You buy the food, you get shipping included. Your entries are automatic, so you don't have to jump through any hoops. There are ways for disclaimer, for legal purposes, it is no purchase necessary. So it's open to anybody. I have the official rules are listed at freegeckogiveaways.com. You can enter without purchasing too. So nobody's limited. It's not like anybody can't enter to win.
Gotcha. So you had to go learn that part of probably outside of your realm of comfort.
Oh, yeah. The regulations behind running sweepstakes like this are so much more complicated than you can imagine. But it's been worth it going through, like getting a lawyer and doing, like you have to have the rules written up exactly right. And you have to have everything done to not only there's federal standards, but then all of the different states have their own standards for sweepstakes. It's incredibly complex. Yeah. But it's an idea that I think is a good one, and I'm committed to making it work. And I think I tried to launch this idea 2.5 years ago, and that's when I run into, how complex the legal side of it is. So it's been almost 3 years in the making to get it done right, and I'm happy that I did the work to do it correctly. So yeah, it's been right? It is like tiptoeing so you don't break any rules.
That's
it's
where
weird.
you know our content is good, when we got Emily and Ed chiming in empathy and understanding. Do you find, I found, speaking of Ed and Emily, there's some regulations from state to state and some things that we have to take into consideration. And I found some people would figure it out and go make the money, and other people would go and they'll stay home and essentially quit on that one idea or that one venue or that one show. Does that ever like that actually gets me going? Like when something's really tough, I go, hey, this being tough just means everybody else out there is quitting and I'm figuring it out. Does that ever like get you going? And like, I don't know, maybe that sounds rude. And I don't know, when I said it out loud, I was like, oh, that sounds kind of rude, but it kind of motivates me. Like, that's my, like, okay, I'm just going to figure it out. And the others that stay home, they're not going to get their slice of the pie, but I will.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and I enjoy that. It's why, like I said, like they just said, I had a big slice of humble pie served when I thought I'd like built a website for it and thought, oh, I've got this idea figured out. And then I ran into all the legal implications and I went, wait a minute, I don't have this figured out. I thought this would be an easy thing to launch, and now it's very complicated, and now it's time to get to work to figure out how to get around all of that stuff too. And yeah, I do think, and the way I always see it in my head, like I've always told people, coming up with ideas isn't the hard part for me. I've got ideas for years.
Right.
The execution is where I struggle. The analogy I've always used is I have like this big ball of yarn in the back of my head, and every yarn is an idea, and it just spins back there. And I constantly have new ideas that I'm stuffing in there, and it's all tangled up. And every once in a while, I'll pick one out and look at it and go, can I do that? Is the time right for me to figure out how to solve the problems for this idea? And if it's not, I stick it back in there and I pull another one out. This idea has been in my head for years and years to try and figure out those problems. I got a million more back there that I may or may not ever get to. I
love, like, every show I always look forward to doing, like, especially if it's somebody I haven't met before. And tonight was a little bit of trepidation because it was short show prep for me. Admittedly, I was working all weekend and it's a short notice. I know squat about geckos. I have learned some about geckos, but man, what a wealth of, like, I didn't know that I would just like, this is up my alley. I could talk to you all night about this stuff. I promised you, and I generally promise the audience, we won't go past 90 minutes because that just means we need another episode of good stuff. But this has been, like I say, a really master level class, and intriguing and invigorating in my mind from a business standpoint. And because I think we all get to places where we're like, man, I'm exhausted. I've been doing so much, or, I just traveled here and I just got this website here and I just updated this and blah, 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 blah. And then you run into somebody and they're like, wait a minute, the thing I thought I hated the most, and maybe in life, which is Black Friday. Now I'm like, I got 2 months. I'm gonna cook up something. I think maybe I get into this. So what I'm saying is, thanks very much, Brian. Audience, if you're not familiar, go check out Altitude Exotics. Even if you're not into crested geckos, if you just heard anything I just said, just go check out the business techniques. There's more out there to life than people going, oh, the market sucks, I didn't sell anything on Morph Market this month. Like, you got to do more. However you could do it, you got to do more. I think that's super cool. And what a great example tonight. Brian, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. That's been one of my biggest passions for a long time, is seeing the people that, like you just said, just all they do is put 10 geckos on Morph Market and then go to Facebook and complain about, well, the market sucks these days. And I'm like, I don't know how to say it without sounding rude, but the market doesn't suck. You suck at selling geckos. That's not the same thing. And some people are willing to work to solve those problems and some aren't. And for me, that's what drives me, is I like to solve those problems. I think it's fun.
Yeah. And I think as long as no matter who we are, I think if we remember that we all suck at something and we all sucked at something before we figured it out, that means that it can be done. But
to clarify, because I sounded like a dick when I say, like, oh no, the market doesn't suck, you suck at selling geckos. So like you just said, we all suck at something. Like I told a story earlier about how I love music. I love performing live music way more than I like breeding and selling geckos. I'm not good enough to do that for a living. And there's a lot more things that I'm not good enough to do. That's a story for all of us. And that doesn't have to be a negative. Like learning that you're not as good at some, even if it's a passion for you. I still make music with my cousin. I just don't try and be a professional musician because I know I'm not good enough. So now it's a passion and it's not trying to be my profession. And I think that's a hard lesson to learn in life sometimes.
I think it is, but I think we could go back to maybe the market doesn't suck. Maybe somebody, a person, maybe I suck at selling, but that could be freeing. Suddenly all the problems aren't out there. The problems are here, and I can work on me. I can't cure the world, but I can work on me. Yeah, that's the thing. So, I mean, that's an okay thought too once we get to that point. But
yeah, like hard things don't have to be negative. They can just be hard things.
They just exist. That is damn sure in life, man. Brian, stick around for just a second. But hey, I hope you come back again. You could be our resident Crested Gecko guy. Rick at Creative Coralofus gets honorable mention on that. He's been a wonderful friend, and actually he's been on the show. There was one Crested Gecko guy before you, but thank you so much. Stick around for just a minute, but I hope you'll come back again sometime soon, and maybe even well, it's cutting it close now. I was gonna say maybe we could do a pre-Black Friday thing, but that's only a couple months. But maybe in the spring, before one of your spring sales, we can revisit some fun business stuff for next Denver show.
An opening on a week's notice right before Black Friday, we can make it happen. This one worked out pretty well.
Yeah, Adam, if you got approximately 43 hours, we'll figure it out. And nobody saw that. And even today, I think it was like 3 this afternoon before we finally connected. Like I'd been doing show prep. I knew you were good for your word, but I hadn't actually figured out how to contact you.
I assume I've been busy all day. I was like, I assume I'll hear from you. And then I finally was like, oh, I hate the stupid message request folder on Instagram. I miss so much stuff in there. Yeah. Oh, real quick, I did want to mention, because you teased the story about why we couldn't do a live in your interview with the show. The quick version of it for everybody is because some mouth-breathing troglodyte ran their car into the power pole next to the expo and knocked the power out for half a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
So the entire show ran on generator power, and we had no Wi-Fi.
And I felt the initial time that it happened was right in the middle of Lauren and Lisa's interview is when that went out. And I was like, and it was funny because I guess, anyway, watch the episodes, guys. We're going to get out of here. But Brian, I got to get you back. I had a blast. It was great. For me not knowing anything about geckos, I thought this went just swimmingly. So thanks very much.
I'd love to do another one. And Emily, the answer is hognose, by the way. I saw a question in the chat.
If you have time. Favorite snake species. Oh, is hognose?
I love hognose. We can't keep them in Colorado because they're native here. We're not allowed to keep native species, but I do go out herping and find them sometimes. They're so cool. I love me a good hognose.
Do you know what channel this is? Do you know the name of this channel? Come on, like you're in the house. Like email Emily. Yeah, see, now you guys are ganging up. This is cute here. Okay. Everybody forgets about the appreciation of the ball python guy. I'm joking. All right, and I don't know the date off the top of my head. Emily and Ed might remember, but I do have Snake Discovery booked on the show in November as well. So maybe you stick around for that too, guys. So thanks very much. Go check out Brian on Instagram. You have your name is AE Geckos. Is that correct?
AE Geckos, yeah.
All right, like 35,000 people have figured it out, but it took me a minute to realize it wasn't the altitude.
There is an altitude exotics page. It's one that I made when I was 21 and then lost the password for, and they've never been able to give me the password back. So now I'm AE Geckos everywhere. Now those have grown so much I can't switch back.
All right, AE Geckos, Snake Discovery on November 19th, and lots of fun.
That one.
Yeah, every Tuesday in between now and then, same place, same time. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for hanging out tonight, and I will see you next time. And thanks to everybody checking out the replay as well. Good night.